term Viking we use to designate a whole historical period in a very simplified way, the Viking Age. Nevertheless, it is a term that also appears on a lot of runestones we'll be looking at in a jiffy. And it has the meaning of pirate, raider, the trip itself, or it is also a person's name. It doesn't have any ethnic connotations, it just refers to an activity, although for the sake of simplification we do tend to use it in a very, very broad sense. Scandinavians from the late Iron Age were also called Danes, Norwegians, Northmen in the sources, but again not necessarily referring to the respective geographical areas, the terms often used interchangeably and thus being quite confusing. For example, in Södermanland in Uppland we have from Bjudby the following inscription. Thorstein och Eystein och Notfari reiste stein att Finnvid och Oleif Thorkel bröder sina. Voro aller vikings sinner landbortnir män leto reta stein. Steinkel reist runar. So Thorstein and Eystein and Notfari raised the stone in the memory of Finnvidr and Oleivr and Thorkel, their brothers. They were all the sons of Viking, or Vikinger, men born on these lands who had the stone erected. Steinkel carved the runes. From Söderby we have the following inscription. Onunder, or this can be also Einander, it's a little unclear. Reistu stein þenna at Viking fóður sinn son stora. So Onunder raised the stone in the memory of Vikinger, again a name. His father, the son of Story. So usually it has this genealogical connotation. You raise a stone in the memory from someone in your family, and then you also mention a couple of other details about kinship. Another example, Songa, or Sundby. Svein och Halfdan och Thora leto reisa stein þenna eftir Viking fóður sinn och att Thegn bróður sinn. Gud hjálpi ond þeirra. This is very interesting because it translates as Svein and Halfdan and Thora had the stone raised in memory of Vikinger, their father, and in memory of Thegn, their brother. May God help their souls. So the context doesn't necessarily have to be pagan. We are in a period of a great mix between pagan and Christian traditions and beliefs, and you're often going to find on these stones references to the soul and to God especially. Moving on, in Östa, in the parish of Utersjölö, we have Björn och Gerðar leto reisa stein þenna att bräður sina Viking och Sigfast. Bali risti. So Björn and Gerðar had the stone raised in the memory of their brothers Viking and Sigfast. Bali is the one who carved. It's also important to mention the name of the person who designed these runes, because that was actually an occupation which was very highly regarded in society, and it's also mythologically legitimized, because we have, for example, Odin who picks up the runes, and they're well related to this whole idea of knowledge and wisdom, and generally speaking people who could write and read were in possession of higher power than the rest of society. So that's also quite interesting. Moving on to the parish of Bru, near the church of Bru, we have Ginlaug, Holmgeirs dóttir, systir Sigröðar og þeirra Gjáts. Hún let gera brú þessa og reisa stein þenna eftir Ósur bonda sinn og son Håkonar jarls. Svo var vikinga vorður með geiti. Guð hjálpi hans nú ond og solu. So Ginlaug, Holmgeirs daughter, Sigröðar and Gautr's sister, she had this bridge made and the stone raised in the memory of Osur, her husband, and the son of Earl Håkon. He was the Viking watch with Geithir. May God now help his spirit and soul. So here we have actually the Old Norse word for soul, which is actually just the same as in English, and this is definitely a very Christian inscription. A little strange here is the use of the term on the Viking watch. What this could have meant, well, probably in reference to some kind of retinue, so maybe they were friends and fighting together, and they formed a band fighting under the same chief, and so on and so forth. I'm thinking perhaps it has to do with that. Otherwise, Viking watch is not something we often find in the sources. So it must have nevertheless something to do with being in the same retinue together, and maybe working abroad for somebody else. Moving on to Longtora parish. Vikingur let reisa stein þennan eftir smíð son sinn, var drengja bestur. So Vikingur had this stone raised in the memory of Smith, his son. He was the best of valiant men. From the parish of Skogsloster, Þjálfi reisti stein þennan eftir Viking, bróðurson sinn. Guð hjálpi solu Vikings. So Þjálfi raised the stone in memory of Viking, his brother's son. May God help the soul of Viking. So again, we have the Christian term of the soul here. So this is definitely a Christian context, because in the older Viking mentality, the soul was actually split into multiple parts, and this would have not come up in this form. I also made a video about how they imagine the soul to look like, about the components like fylgja and hamingju and so on and so forth. If you want to know more about that, you can just go to that video. Alright, from the island of Gotland, we have in the parish of Hablingbo the following inscription. Hvattar og Heilgeir reistu stein eftir Helga fóður sinn. Hann var vesturfarin með Vikingu. So this is interesting because it says that Hvattar and Heilgeir, or Halgeir, a bit unclear here, raised a stone in the memory of Helgi, who was their father, and he traveled to the west with the Vikings. So this is a clear reference to the many journeys and undertakings of the Vikings, especially in the western parts where they went on raiding and they got really involved with the Anglo-Saxon population, and they shared a lot of common history in the 9th and 10th and 11th century respectively, starting with Lindisfarne and going way further even with the foundation of the so-called Danelaw. From Småland, we have an inscription near the church of Växjö. Toki reisti stein eftir Gunnar, son Gríms. Guð hjálpi solu hans. Toki Vikingur. So Toki raised the stone in memory of Gunnar, the son of Grim. May God help his soul. Toki the Viking. So it mentions here the word Viking, but this time as an occupation, because we already have a name for him. His name is Toki. And then again, the inscription contains the word soul, the Christian word and concept. In Skåne, we have from the parish of Västra Strö, Fadir let hoggva rúnar þessar eftir Ósur bróður sinn, norðvarð dáður í Vikingu. This is also very fascinating. We have the runes cut in memory of Osur, the brother who died in the north on a Viking raid. So again, in the sense of occupation and occupational hazard, respectively. From the parish of Gårdstanga, we have the following. Tosti og Gunnar. A bit unclear if we do have this name Tosti here written. Anyway, steina þessa eftir Björn félaga sinn, þeir drengjar voru víða onleysir í Vikingu. A lot of letters were actually added on later because the inscription seems to be a tad broken. So Tosti and Gunnar raised these stones in the memory of somebody who has Björn, like bear, in the second part of their name, and this person is described as being the companion of the two. These valiant men were widely renowned on Viking raids. So as you can see, it was, if you were a Viking in the time, you should have mentioned that on a runestone, because that was something that would have increased your reputation highly. We also have a couple of examples from Denmark, for example from the parish of Tiersted, and it goes like this. Ostråder och Hildunger reistu stein þenna ept. Frænda sin en han var þó feiknvera. En han var dáður og svitjóðu og var fyrstur frigis liði. Þó allir vikingar. Again, a lot of letters had to be added here because this is also quite unclear. But anyway, we also have a bunch of people here, Ostrader and Hildunger, probably, or Hildur Ulfur, raising the stone in the memory of Fredi or Fradi, who was a kinsman of theirs, and he was the terror of men, says the runestone. He died in Sweden and was thereafter the first in Frigir's retinue, and then they were all Vikings. So again, it was very important to mention the activity of these people because it was, well, something to be proud of. Interestingly, we also have inscriptions from the island of Orkney. It's the more or less famous Maeshowe. For example, That vikinger þó kom undir her til. That is a Viking, or perhaps also the name of a person, Vikinger. He came here underneath. There are 30 inscriptions in the central chamber, making this one of the largest and most famous collections of runes in Europe. Reference in the Orkney saga, chapter 93, tells how men sheltered in Maeshowe, or as they called it, Orkahauger. According to the saga, 2 of the men went mad while sheltering here. There is another inscription on the northeast side of the chamber claiming that crusaders broke into this howe, and this has been linked to Earl Rognvald and his men, who actually made a crusade to the Holy Land after the murder of Earl Magnus. And then again you find all kinds of graffiti, like Trigger carved these runes, or Anfitr, the son of Stein, carved these runes. So generally speaking, a lot of people carving runes here, and well, simply mentioning their names, but we also find funnier stuff like somebody shagging and other people watching. So this is definitely a topic to consider for a future video. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing to the channel and helping it grow. Thanks a lot, and until next time.